ads plus AI is sort of uniquely unsettling to me. I kind of think of ads as like a last resort for us for a business model.
Anthropic just dropped a bomb at the Super Bowl in front of 100 million people, roasting the guy you just saw, Sam Altman, because ads are coming to ChatGPT. You want to watch it?
Let's watch them because they're actually kind of genius.
Let's go for it.
Hey, can I get a six-pack quickly?
Perfect. That is a clear and achievable goal. But confidence isn't just built in the gym. Try Step Boost Max, the insoles that add 1 vertical inch of height and help short kings stand tall.
Short
Use
kings.
code HEIGhtMaxing10 for big discounts.
Oh, man.
They dropped this ad, and then Sam Altman freaked out about it, posting on the platform formerly known as Twitter. Basically, he even said, Anthropic serves an expensive product to rich people. We're glad they do that, and we're doing that too, but we also feel strongly that we need to bring AI to billions of people who can't pay for subscriptions. So he's dropping class war narratives into the conversation, in my opinion. Now, Kate, why are these companies beefing? Why Anthropic versus OpenAI?
Well, it makes sense that there's a little bit of tension here. It makes sense that it's a little triggering to Sam Altman because these people actually, the people who started Anthropic, they actually are co-founders of OpenAI, and they've actually all been at odds since 2020. Dario and Daniela Amadei, the founders of Anthropic, left OpenAI and started their own company, Anthropic, which makes Claude. And they left because they were no longer sure that Sam Altman was going to follow the original mission set out by OpenAI. It was a nonprofit when it first started, and they were worried that it was going to build a misaligned AI, right? One that doesn't work in the favor of human beings, that they weren't being careful enough around security protocols. They weren't being careful enough around building a aligned AI. So they left. And so there is a little bit of bad blood here. There's a little beef. And, Anthropic has gone from maybe player number 3 or 4, like the bottom of the totem pole, to right around the top. Their coding product is the best that's out there right now. In fact, it's so good that Sam Altman issued a code red at the end of last year so that everybody would stop, running around in circles and start focusing on building a better coding machine inside of OpenAI. So these two companies are kind of neck and neck right now, which makes me love even more the fact that they're putting diss ads inside of the Super Bowl against each other.
And we had several ads about AI in the Super Bowl. We had Copilot that had a really boring ad. We had some other startup that I can remember that also is sort of a wrapper, so I don't see them lasting more than a year. We had AI.com doing pure slop. We had Claude beefing with OpenAI. We also had 2 ads that I counted at least by OpenAI that were focused on building, very inspirational. And then Google came with the most boring by the book ad for technology, because it's like every ad you've ever seen, to also talk about Gemini. But I would say it was definitely a big AI vibe was going on in all the ads beyond the 90s nostalgia, right? Those were the 2 things, AI and nostalgia, because apparently now we all love the 90s.
Yeah, and actually I saw a chart at some point that measured the different ads that were in 2025 Super Bowl and 2026, and the tech category got really big this year. So it's kind of like the tech giants are owning the airwaves right now, and I think that's something that we're paying attention to. I know Scott Galloway, who you and I follow, is definitely paying attention to it. They've become the leaders on the leaderboard of advertisers, and that's really important to pay attention to.
And one important thing to remember, right, is that this all comes with a price tag, right? When you are blowing up tons of money on Super Bowl advertising, that definitely shows 2 things. One, hopefully you have the money to spend, but then you're going to have to pay for it. So there's a couple of things that I'm thinking about, right? Will other companies go and, do ads as well to follow ChatGPT, even though they're all now saying, no, we're not doing it. But let's say 6 months from now, right? Are they going to be doing that? And I'm no expert. I'm a content creator. I work in learning. I'm no economist, right? But there's a couple of things where I read and did some research, and there's a couple of points that I really agree with if you want to know why OpenAI is going for these ads versus Claude, right? The first one, AI is very, very expensive. For example, The Big Short. Have you seen The Big Short movie, Kate?
Like 4 times, yeah.
Okay, so that guy, Michael Burry, he says that this is a stock market bubble, but also he's saying OpenAI has a Netscape kind of fate. I remember back in the early 2000s, my first browser, I'm pretty sure it was Netscape because Internet Explorer didn't even exist. Where's Netscape? I tend to agree with OpenAI being a Netscape. Number 2, investors want returns. When Sam Altman says, I don't care if we're blowing up billions and billions, well, apparently, big tech has already spent $630 billion. It rivals the Swedish economy. But now, they're getting kind of nervous because 630 billions, that's a lot of money. And one day someone said, hey, are we ever recouping this? And now they're getting nervous. So obviously, I'm assuming as cocky, as secure as Sam Altman comes on camera every time he speaks with that really Sam Altman kind of voice, like reflective. The investors are probably still going like, Sam, where's the money? So show me the money would be, You want to know what's number 3?
Yes, I definitely do. Because $630 billion is a lot of advertising. So I hope they have other things in the hopper.
Well, they have a subsidized $20 subscription, but here's something that you might not know, Kate, which is only 5% of people are paying for ChatGPT. $20 a pop. I don't think that alone might not cover it. As a matter of fact, some financial experts are saying OpenAI is on the verge of running out of money. Just like most of Americans that live paycheck to paycheck, OpenAI, it's kind of looking at the account and going like, boy, this is going low.
Okay, so the thinking there being we have to, like a Netflix, we have to offer a free ad tier for users who don't want to pay for the subscriptions, right? The advertising product is offsetting the costs of people using ChatGPT for free.
Who the F knows could be my reflection. I don't know if you remember, Kate, you actually brought this up a couple of episodes ago when we were talking about the lack of focus of OpenAI versus Anthropic. And it seems to me like we definitely, we can see when we make the comparison, Anthropic is very settled on paid users, and that's who they want, coders. And OpenAI is kind of trying to be
enterprise, right? And OpenAI is the everything, right? We talk about it as like Claude is the Delta Sky Miles Lounge and ChatGPT is the bus terminal for everybody. And then if you want your focused professional enterprise tool, then maybe you go to your Anthropic.
Mm-hmm. Now, having said that, I find myself in a very difficult position because I'm actually gonna make some arguments in favor of OpenAI, and in order which I never thought I'd say in my life. But in order to do that, I want to invite you to go review Sam Altman's tweet together because he has a couple of arguments that he's making, and I want to go through those with you and get your thoughts.
Okay, I know this is going to be hard for you, so I'm here for you.
Thank you. I'm going to need tons of support. So, well, he starts very Sam Altman. Like, this is like, I feel like he went to ChatGPT and said, please write the most Sam Altman statement ever. Starts very polite, agreeing like, this is beautiful that they're doing that. But then it starts hitting. And now, we got 3, at least for me, there are 3 major points that he's hitting. Number 1, it's, like we said, Anthropic serves an expensive product to rich people. And, he's talking about a certain elitist. And covering my nose, I have to align with him because one thing that you experience when you use Claude, if we're talking about access to AI for everyone, democratizing, if you use Claude and you're not a paying user, I think you can blink and, you run out of tokens. You can't use it anymore. You got to wait. That's not an experience that you're going to go through with ChatGPT again.
Fair. Okay, fair.
But
I've run into
that one, I'd side with Sam. It's an elitist thing. And Claude makes it very, and it's their business model. They want the paid user. They don't care about free.
Of course.
So
yeah,
that's number 1.
Okay.
Number two, he says Anthropic is gatekeeping. Anthropic wants to control what people do with AI. He complains about them blocking companies, including OpenAI, writing the rules, and we'll go on this one in a second. So, Kate, what do you think about this argument that he's making of Anthropic being the gatekeepers?
I think he's kind of speaking out of both sides of his mouth on that one, because if you remember the history we just spoke about, OpenAI, and the reason why Elon Musk invested in it is because it was supposed to be an open company. It was and they took the initiative to become a privately held corporation and didn't allow access to any of their models. It's something that everybody's doing. And so I think that, admitting that there's competition in the AI marketplace and using that as a talking point against your competitor, it's a little silly if you ask me. It's a little flimsy.
Well, now we go with the best argument of them all, which is he low-key, in my opinion, is accusing Anthropic of pushing for regulation, which I feel like 10,000 years ago, back in 2023, Sam was actually begging for regulation. Have I lost my mind?
No, I remember him clearly sitting in front of Congress begging them to regulate the industry. It was only a couple of years ago. So maybe he's experiencing some kind of amnesia. He was so excited about the Bad Bunny performance at the Super Bowl that he forgot to pay attention to what he was writing in this tweet.
Who can blame him? What a sexy man.
One other thing that was in Sam's tweet that I actually kind of agreed with was when he talked about the fact that Anthropic's ads were misleading about their ad product, because that is kind of true. They made it seem like the ads were going to surface in this, very subtle way so that you wouldn't know whether you were seeing an ad or actually getting real content from the model. And I know why they did that. They did that to create buzz. They did that to point a finger. It was very cleverly done, and I do appreciate those ads very much. But Sam is right that their ad product, the thing that they are building, does surface, very clearly identified and labeled ads as sort of an added consumer experience, right? Let me help guide you towards something that may be helpful towards you as you're thinking and exploring this topic. So I get why he was a little miffed. I think he can't take a joke, but for me as an advertiser, or I have worked as an advertiser in prior roles, I'm actually kind of excited to see this ad product rolled out. But for the right advertiser who understands that this is the way to get in front of an audience when they're thinking about, let's say, travel, or they're thinking about planning a vacation in the very city where your business, it's very targeted, because it's not only targeted to where they live, what gender they are, what their average spend on a product is, but it's targeted to the headspace. It's when they're thinking and exploring these topics and really at the point of decision making about a purchase, for example. And to me, that is very valuable. So this obviously is the very first test of these ads. I want to see how they perform, see some case studies out about them, but in success, I would advise my clients to potentially look into this as a new way to advertise inside of LLMs.
One thing I do want to say before we move on is, years ago, I think a decade ago, Samsung had an ad knocking on Apple about them removing the headphone jack. Shortly after, they removed the headphone jack as well. So I would like to see how Anthropic, does in a year, and if they're really not doing ads as well as Gemini and all the others. Now, Kate, who wins this fight?
Anthropic versus OpenAI? Claude versus ChatGPT? Oh, gosh. I mean, I don't want to predict the future, but I'm a Claude girl. I am in that elitist bucket that you referred to. Thank you very much. And, as we've covered in prior episodes, and I think my thinking still remains the same, OpenAI is running in a million directions, right? And, we talked about a few of them in a prior episode. We didn't cover hardware, and they're also racing towards hardware, which is like totally out of range of some of the other software products that they're building and churning out. But so I guess my money would be on Claude in that one-on-one competition. Like if you add Google right? And Gemini, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a different story. But for me, Claude, slow and steady wins the race.
For me, I will say it's hard to root for anyone. OpenAI, Anthropic, both of them were companies that were funded training their LLMs based on pirate material. The IP worked from lots of people. So to me, it's Coke versus Pepsi, right? None of them will make my life better. Now, if the dot-com boom showed us anything, is that the tools that survive are the ones that limit the most thing and can make the most money doing that. So I feel like we will start seeing more AI tools that have paid on add-ons, kind of like that Black Mirror episode with that woman gets the brain and then she starts blurting ads. Same thing.
That was so scary.
Exactly. But also, like you said, for me, the winner of all of this is going to be Google with their boring ad, because they already own enterprise, along Microsoft, but they're big in enterprise. Every company, mostly, they're going to be using Google. So they already have the public. It's pretty easy for them to just push Gemini like they're doing, and eventually it'll win. Because the ad on the Super Bowl, it's just saying, hey, we're going to send Gemini to the everyday user. And it's very aspirational in the sense of this is how you do it on your everyday life. So my money is on Google.
Yeah. The other thing that happened in the dot-com boom is like the internet didn't go away. Like a lot of the investment was recalibrated, right? And the markets reacted. But the internet is still here. And also a lot of the tech companies that were there at the time have found their own niches and new ways of operating. And so I just don't necessarily think that we're going to have this. So it's almost like the beginning of TV where you had 3 networks here in the US. Mm-hmm. And they all competed against each other and they all had kind of the same thing. And then there's a diversification of the entire space. And suddenly you have all these players and, conglomerations and different use cases. And so I think it's going to look a lot different than it does today. It may not be a 3-horse race.
All right. Yeah, that's it. So you don't think that whoever wins shapes how AI is going to, the future of AI? That's not happening for you.
I don't know. I think that there's players that haven't even emerged into the general lexicon yet that could be very valuable in the next coming 3 to 5 years. I think that there maybe isn't one winner, but there's 3 winners for 3 different lanes, and it could be that Claude becomes the coding pillar, the coding lane, and then Google becomes the enterprise lane and ChatGPT becomes the consumer lane. These are all things that could happen. So there's no way to really sort of judge at this point in time. We can just sort of play out the different scenarios in our heads.
All right. Let's go to the most important question. What do you think of the Bad Bunny halftime show?
I mean, it's just really hard to do this episode and talk about AI stuff after watching the Bad Bunny halftime show, which was maybe the best of all time. Social media exploded this morning. It was basically all Bad Bunny memes, and they were fabulous and celebrating joy and love. It was chef's kiss. Thank you.
Chef kiss. So yeah, I'm not a fan of reggaeton, but I'm a fan of anything that triggers fascists. So Benito, te amo. Hermoso hablar español. Qué lindo idioma. That's it, Kate. I don't have anything else to say. See you next week.
Adios.
I hate ads. I think ads were important to give the early internet a business model, but I think they do sort of somewhat fundamentally misalign a user's incentives with the company providing the service. I'm not totally against them. I'm not saying OpenAI would never consider ads, but I don't like them in general.